Right, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining us to kick off the new year. It's great to see you all and hope everybody had a great holiday. Here is the agenda that we're going to be going through today. The main things that are going to take the longest time, I think, to talk about is the public policy priorities update, which we're going to spend about 15 minutes talking about to make sure that everybody is really clear on what we need to do here. Hold on, Nancy just texted. Oh, she is having trouble joining. Okay, she's still trying. Um, and then we're going to have Kathy talk to us about AAUW National and how they set their priorities and how that relates to what we're doing here in California. And then we'll spend just a couple of minutes updating you on Ledge Agenda, Lobby Days, School Board Project, and some of the things that we've got going on. So why don't we jump in with the public policy priorities? So every 2 years, we update our public policy priorities that guide everything that we do. We sent out a survey to all members in California in November, and we received 686 responses. 592 of those respondents said that they were happy with the PPPs the way that they are, didn't want any changes. 94 people suggested changes. We got 122 comments. And the over 8,000 members that did not respond, I think we can safely assume that they didn't respond because they're happy with the PPPs the way that they are. So in other words, the vast majority of our members are good with the PPPs as they are, but our PPPs are guided by member input. So it's important for us to evaluate all the suggestions and feedback that we get from the people who do want to see changes so that we can give those careful consideration as we shape the priorities for the next 2 years, 2025 to 2027. So the PPP subcommittee has now reviewed all of the respondents who the feedback from the people who wanted to have changes, and they've made recommendations regarding that feedback. So thank you so much for all the subcommittee members who were part of that process. Really appreciate your help on that. And now the next steps are going to involve these steps here that we're going to go into in further detail. And Donna, did you
Oh,
say that you have a
yeah,
board?
I made a board, this, and I have it just so I can display it at the meetings and at our book sale.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I love it because sometimes I think we forget why we're doing this, and I was hoping I could attract new members if they saw what our values were.
Very nice.
How
Love
did
it.
you do- Can you tell us quickly how you did that?
I just did a screenshot and I sent it to Staples,
Okay, great, thank you.
and they made the nice foam board, so.
Foam board, okay.
Okay, so the next step here is going to involve the full committee. Let me see if you could advance this one slide. Step one is going to require the full committee to give responses to the recommendations that the PPP subcommittee made to each of the pieces of feedback that we got from members. And we're going to pop open one of these spreadsheets so that we can show you how this is all put together. There's one sheet here that's just all the responses from members. Just skip forward from that one because you don't need to worry about that one. Now, across the bottom here, you'll see that there are several tabs. Each one of these tabs is for each one of the priorities under the economic security pillar. And within each of these priorities, we received member feedback. The member feedback is over here on the column I and J, they wanted to either delete it or keep it or modify it. And then they explained in column J why they're making the recommendation that they're making. So this is all feedback that came from our members who responded to the survey, broken out into the 4 public policy priority pillars, and then from there broken out into each of the priorities under these pillars. So right now we're looking at the economic security pillar, and we're looking at the first priority under that pillar, which is up here at the top, work-life balance.
That
There
was
we go.
fun.
Oh,
You
that's
had 5 up
okay.
first. That's what.
Oh, okay. It doesn't matter. They're all structured the same way, but up at the top there, you can see the policy that is being discussed, and then what the feedback is that came in from the respondents. And then in column L here, this is the subcommittee recommendation. In this case, this was the recommendation that came from Nancy Brimeau, because she worked on a couple of these tabs, a couple of these policies. And she has made the recommendation here in response to the feedback that came from the member. So this is what the subcommittee has done with every piece of feedback that we received from members for all of the public policy priorities. So now our task for this full committee is to review what the AAUW member recommended, which is here in columns I and J, and then review what the PPP subcommittee recommended, which is in column L, and provide your response to the subcommittee recommendation in these columns over here on the right-hand side. Every person has a column, so put your feedback under your name.
Hi,
Good to have you here.
thank you.
I would still get any questions about it.
That's
Yeah.
Lorinda.
that's
Hey,
helpful.
Lorinda, if you hear us, can you put us on mute? Put yourself on mute.
Yeah, I don't know what the confusion was because I got it. Its email was extremely clear.
I
Could you
thought so.
mute Lorinda? as
So-
well?
Yeah, we weren't.
Yeah, okay, she's muted. Okay, so, and there are a total of 4 different spreadsheets like this, one for each of the 4 pillars. And within each of these sheets are several tabs. And so they're all structured the same way. And in each of the tabs is for each of the policies under the pillar. And the PPP subcommittee member who is assigned to those priorities have made their recommendations. So our task is to respond to the PPP subcommittee recommendation. And it's important to note here that we're asking for your response to the PPP subcommittee recommendation, not your response to the original member feedback. So I know that's a lot. Does anybody have any questions about what I've said so far?
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
question. I guess you can't.
Yeah, Nancy.
Anyway, yes. So do we have to comment on every single one or just the ones within our assigned PPP category?
No, on every single one. You, Nancy, you initially made your recommendations as a PPP subcommittee member to the ones that you were assigned to. But now the task is for everybody on the full committee to respond to every single one of the 4 pillars and every single one of the priorities under each of the 4 pillars. So we're asking everybody to provide your responses to all 4 of these spreadsheets and all of the tabs within all 4 spreadsheets.
Amy?
Yeah.
But for an example, when I was doing mine, I went and looked what other folks were doing just so I could see the
Yeah.
type of standard response would be like, no comment, no policy. Is there some type of like, now I'm looking at other subcommittees' responses Like, do I say agree or not agree? What would be like, what am I, what's my response? I mean, obviously it's going to be a case by case, but is it like agree with subcommittee member or disagree, or what's the a standard response that we would put in these columns that are labeled for us, for
Yeah.
each one of us? What am I looking to respond in a particular way?
Thanks, Rhonda. That's a great question. And I think the most straightforward responses would be agree or disagree. And if you are agreeing to a portion, but not agreeing to the full thing, explain why. Or if you're disagreeing, explain why.
Thank you. That would help. I usually wait for other folks to go, and then I go and look at theirs. Like, so what kind of phrasing are they using and things of that sort? So I appreciate that a lot. So now I'll be looking at the subcommittee recommendation and know how to respond to that recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Rhonda. That's a great question. So the procedure for how to go through all of this is, to review the original suggestion that came in from the AAUW member, review the subcommittee response, look at the current policy statement, which is linked here. Those are our public policy priorities. And then also review the pertinent national PPPs, which are linked here as well. Yeah, Kathy.
I just wanted to say in response to Rhiannon's question, another response might be, you might agree with the recommendation of the original PPC member. You might say, I agree that we should consider the original member's response, but for a different reason. They might have stated a reason that you don't agree with that being a reason. The end result of this is at the end of all of this, we're all going to come together one more time and discuss all of the comments and make final decisions. And so your feedback on here helps us formulate what that discussion, what form that discussion is going to take. What are the ones that we really need to talk about? And what are the ones that we can just dismiss? Does that make sense? That help? I'm sorry, and that was Rhonda, not Rhiannon's.
Thanks, Kathy.
I mean,
Okay, and then like mentioned on here, state whether you agree or disagree and why. And linked down here is a document which explains the purpose of the PPP review and the detailed procedure of how to go through this task. This was put together by Kathy Harper, and many thanks, Kathy. This is a super helpful, detailed document. So please take a look at that so that you get a really good understanding of why we're doing this and how to go through the process. And we're asking for everybody to put your inputs into these spreadsheets on or before January 30th. As you go through this, if you run into problems, questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we really appreciate your help. This is a really important thing that our committee does because it guides everything that AAUW California does for the next 2 years in terms of all of our work that we do.
And I may have missed this, Amy, I just have a question. Do we consult with our president and the leadership of our AAUW team, or do we do that on our?
You're doing this in your capacity as a public policy committee member, so no.
Okay.
You know, Amy, I was looking at the national PPPs and the changes that they're recommending for the bylaws, and I know they've kind of restructured a little and cut back a little on the PPPs that we currently have. I mean, they seem to be concentrating on education, very much so, LGBTQ plus issues, and some of the other things that were sort of, and gun violence and some other stuff they mentioned. But some of the things I think we currently have, they're not stressing. So just a comment.
Yeah, and great segue into the next section that we're going to get to soon, Ginny, because Kathy is going to be giving us
Oh,
a
good.
primer on how our priorities relate or don't relate to what National is doing at their level. So hold that thought, but thanks. Yeah, Nancy.
Could you tell me exactly how to get to this page that you have up on the screen?
Oh, I'm going to send this out to everybody so you all will have this slide deck, and which is going to be really useful for you because all of these things are linked in the slide deck. So we'll send this out after this meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
And for those
Okay,
of us who sadly cannot remember the password for getting into the AAUW California committee site, where I assume we need to go to do this, will you include that too?
Oh, yeah, and it's not password protected. It's
Ooh.
all in Google Workspace.
Oh, okay,
So,
got it.
yeah.
Yeah, easy, thanks.
Uh-huh. Okay, so now after the full committee provides all of your inputs into these spreadsheets, the next step is going to be that the chairs are going to review everything that everybody has recommended, and we're going to put together a list of the items that need further discussion. So this will be whatever remains after we eliminate where the majority agrees with the PPP subcommittee recommendation. And we're gonna take a look at, so in other words, what we're going to be reducing this down to for items that need to be discussed further is where the majority of the full committee disagrees with the PPP subcommittee recommendation. And that will be some hopefully small subset of what we're looking at here. And then we will then need to reconvene to discuss any of those items where the majority disagrees with the PPP subcommittee recommendation. And like said on this asterisk down at the bottom, this, whether we need to meet in a Zoom meeting or maybe do the discussion over email depends on the extent to which we have disagreements that need to be fleshed out further. So we'll see how things fall out after the committee does your work here and gives your responses to everything. Missy or Kathy, is there anything that you would add to what I've just said?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if you think it would be helpful. I've already logged some of my responses, like I did some on economic security. I don't know if you think it might be helpful just to go to one of those to give an example of how the comments might look. I've done all of Ashes, so it would be under
Ashes. So those are probably like number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So if you could go over to my comments, yeah, here. So here's an example. So the comment by the PPP member was, this is covered in pillar 4. So my comment is, it's not, I didn't agree with her reasoning. So I just put my reasoning in there. This is not the reason I disagree with, I would say we won't modify, is because it's not a pillar 1 issue. Government leaders are elected by voters. So that I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but it's just an idea of how you can comment on the comment if you don't necessarily agree with it, with the reasoning of the PPP member. I don't know if that helps or muddies it up, but anyway, you're all welcome to take a look at my responses if you want to.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, and you guys, because Kathy is like, she's the pro at this, please do take a look as Kathy puts in her inputs, because she is going to be a really good kind of example of how to do this. And Kathy, thank you so much for mentioning that. So now if the majority of the full committee comments similarly to Kathy and says this is not, a pillar, whatever it was that Kathy said, if the majority of the people respond the same way, then we have majority agreement within the committee, and then we know how to proceed further on this piece of feedback.
So if we agree with Kathy, do we agree with Kathy, or do we write?
No.
It's just not, a pillar one issue like she did.
Yeah, do that. Not a pillar one issue.
Okay.
The only thing I have to say is January 30th. Does everyone have that marked?
Yeah.
Okay. Just mark the deadline, because then it comes back to us for review, and we would really appreciate you getting it in on time so that we can do the next steps. So thank you.
4 weeks from today, right?
No, I don't think it's 4 weeks. It's probably more like 3 weeks.
I don't have January 30th on my calendar.
Oh, it was on the previous slide.
That's when we're meeting again? Oh,
No, the full committee feedback is due on or before
oh, the due
January.
date. Oh,
It's
God.
3
Oh,
weeks from today.
Okay, I thought it was a calendar event. Okay, got it.
Okay, and then we will meet to discuss any points of disagreement. And by March 12th, which is when a state board meeting is happening, we are going to have developed the final version of the PPPs incorporating this committee's feedback, and that's going to get submitted to the board for approval. After board approval, it will go out to the full membership for a vote in April.
So the last time we'll see it then will be January 30th, unless there's discussion.
Yes,
Correct.
right. Yeah, and we will let you all know, where things sit after we receive everybody's feedback and evaluate that.
Donna, we don't meet on the 30th. I thought that's what I heard you say. We don't meet on the 30th. We just have to have our responses into the survey by the 30th. And then I assume Amy and Missy will set a date for meeting after that.
Yeah, that's where I was confused. And yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, and and we may or may not meet as a full committee depending on the extent of disagreements, and whether we can resolve them over email, or if it's something that we need to get together as a full team to meet on. Are there any other questions about this process? Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate your participation on this important project. So next up, we're going to talk about AAUW National's priorities. How do they set their legislative priorities? How can or can not AAUW California influence their priorities? And Kathy Harper is here to explain this for us. And Missy, if you could pop open that link.
Thank you so much, Amy. So as some of you may or may not know, I happen to currently be sitting on the Public Policy Committee for National. So that gives me kind of an insider's view of how things operate there. And just in the short, I've been on that committee for a year now, and I've already learned a lot of things that I didn't know. And so my impetus for suggesting to Amy that I could share this information with you is I get a lot of feedback. I get a lot of questions, calls, texts, emails, whatever, from members saying, National needs to do this or that, or why isn't National doing such and such, or we need a national position on this, or we need a policy change on this. And so it just became clear to me that a lot of our members were under some of the same misconceptions that I was until I had an opportunity to get more involved with National. So we conferred and thought that it might be really helpful to all of you to have a better understanding of how national public policy works versus how it works here in California, because there are some significant differences. So I've broken it down into the areas where I think that where I see the most differences and the needs to highlight those and explain them. So right from the start, the one thing that we need to understand is that National operates very differently than California because it's a professional corporation. It's a business. It is made up of volunteers, volunteer membership and volunteer dues, but it is still, it's incorporated and it is run more like a business. So on the other hand, California, AEW California and all of our branches are volunteer affiliates. And we both have boards of directors, but they operate very differently. So that's the next item. And at the national level, they're overseen by a board of directors with authority to direct the staff and affiliates. So as a professional corporation, AUW National has a paid staff, and they are their duties are governed by the board of directors and by the CEO. I was looking at this earlier and I was thinking I should have put that in there as well. So they have a CEO who is also a paid position, of course. And that's Gloria Blackwell currently. And as averse to that, we are also overseen by a board of directors, but their authority is limited to approving and disapproving policy. So the best way to think about this, I think, is that at the national level, it's a top-down structure. So everything is decided at the top levels between the board of director and the CEO, and then they make the major decisions and then direct staff as to how to carry out those decisions. In California, the public policy, each of the committees, I think we have like 7 committees, they meet and just decide what they want to do. And then they bring their recommendations to the board, and the board either approves them or disapproves them. So that's more of a ground up way that we work. So the next item, as I mentioned, public policy, the public policy division at the national level is run by a paid staff. It has a very, very tiny staff. Currently, their director is Megan Kissel, and she only has one other paid staff member who works under her, and that's Kalina Majerikuk, I think is how she pronounces it. She has a new title. Her predecessor used to be called the grassroots manager, and they've changed that to advocacy manager. And then they have currently 2 paid interns that can change from time to time depending on resources, but right now they have 2 paid interns. And then they work with the National Public Policy Committee. In California, almost all public policy is run exclusively by this committee. It's developed exclusively by a committee of all volunteers. The next item, so there are two circumstances under which public policies and public policy priorities are considered. One is on a yearly basis, and the other is on a 2-year basis. So I'm going to talk about the yearly basis first. So at the national level, each year the board makes a determination as to the priorities. That is what they want their staff to work on. So this is what Jenny was talking about, is it seems, when she says it seems like they've dropped some things and highlighted some other things, that direction came from the board of directors in consultation, I'm sure, with Gloria, and probably as well with Megan, but to a much lesser degree. So the board made a decision this year that they want Megan's public policy staff to concentrate on 3 priorities. Those are secondary education, which will include Title IX, support for advanced degrees, and pay equity. They make their decisions based on their current resources. They make it on several factors: the composition of the board and what their issues and concerns are, what Gloria's issues and concerns are, and also what resources are available to carry out their directives. So these are the 3 things that they have told Megan that they want her and her staff to concentrate. And I'll go in a minute into what that means in practical terms as far as carrying out the board's directives. But so each year they set their 3 top policy priorities, and they direct that downward to the PP director, Megan. And these determine how and on what her department will expend their time and energy. In California, we also meet each year and decide what we're going to work on each year. But that doesn't come from our board of directors. That comes from our current public policy priorities. So we set those on a 2-year basis. And each year when we are starting to decide, what are we going to work on this year? What kind of projects do we want to do? What new ideas do we have for the coming year? We go directly to our existing public policy priorities. Those stay for California, those stay pretty stagnant for that whole 2-year period. And each of those 2 years, we're guided by whatever decisions we come up with. They have to be within those public policy priorities. The areas that we're going to focus on are determined strictly by this committee. There's no outside input on that. And then we direct outward to our paid advocate, to KVO, Kathy Van Osten. Some of you haven't had the chance to meet her yet. And we tell her how we want her to spend her time and energy for this particular year. All of that comes about when we meet to do set our legislative priorities, which we'll be doing in March, I think, the beginning of March. So this committee will meet and we will determine our legislative priorities. And we have a lot more. Megan has 3 big ones that she is going to have to deal with. We have sometimes 30, 35 bills that we want to work on, and that all comes out of our existing public policy priorities. The other circumstance under which we examine PPPs is the 2-year review. So that's coming up, and we're in sync with national on that. So that's coming up. Right now, we're all working under PPPs that were developed for the years 2023 through 2025. So that's ending in July. That's a fiscal year. So that ends in July. I'm sorry, in June 30th. So what we're going to be working on is the public policy priorities for the next 2 years, for fiscal years of 2025 through 2027. So again, go back to the national level. Again, it starts at the top. The board directs the director on what policy is. And there are 2 different things. I've got this down here. I want to differentiate between principles and priorities. At the national level, this is a big deal. At the state level, they're kind of mixed. Our principles come out of our 3 pillars. But those, again, stay stagnant. Those are always our pillars unless we decide we want to add one, which we did 2 years ago. We added the women in leadership pillar. But for the most part, we're always guided by our 3 pillars are our policy statements, our principle statements. At the national level, those are constantly under review for whether or not those are going to change, be modified, eliminated. That comes again from the board of directors. So the board starting at the top, the board decides on the principles that will guide the organization as a whole. Those principles are then passed down to the director of public policy. The director then meets with us, or the public policy committee, and we take a look at what's existing and decide if we want to make any changes or not. Those changes have to be considered within the directors from the board, the directives of the board of director. So we will make recommendations on the principles and the priorities. And then when we have completed our work, then we send that to the board for their approval. And if they approve, then it goes out to membership for input. So that's where we are right now on the national level. What you've all received within the last day or 2, that's the end product of that procedure that I just laid out for you. So our committee has already met with Megan. We've made our recommendations, and now it's going out to membership for their input, whether they agree with what we're recommending or not. And again, I want to go back to this differentiation between principles and priorities. Principles are the broad statements of what we stand for. So again, going back to Jenny's comments, it might include gun violence, and the next 2 years later, that might be eliminated because it might be decided by Megan and the committee and the board that that's no longer a big issue right now, or it's not an issue that we want to be involved in, or it's already been resolved and it's no longer necessary. For whatever reason, those principles can change each time that we look at revising the PPPs. The priorities, on the other hand, are very different. They're the guidelines that are given to Megan and her staff of how to carry out those principles. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that this is all done at a federal level. So again, I get a lot of input on things that affect primarily us at a state level. And that is not something that's going to be addressed at the national level. They work with Congress. We work with our state legislatures. They work on congressional bills only, congressional issues only. So everything that is done in the PPPs is guidelines for the committee, for the team to do their work at the federal level. So contrast that with California. Again, it's just the opposite. We start at the bottom. We go out to our membership and we say, what do you think of our existing PPPs? Would you like any changes made to those? And then that they respond and that feedback comes back to us, and then that starts the procedure that Amy has just gone through. So our committee then looks at all of those comments from our membership. We consider whether or not we want to make the changes that they have recommended. We decide which ones to adopt, or I should say reject, not refuse. And then we send our recommendations to the board, and the board either accepts them or doesn't, or on a case-by-case basis, they might accept some and not others. I will tell you that in the 6 years that I was the chair of the Public Policy Committee, the board never rejected or had any problems whatsoever with the recommendations of this committee. That doesn't mean they won't or can't, but they generally approve whatever this committee recommends to them. And again, our focus is work that needs to be done at the state level, not the federal level. So for instance, many years we've had members who say, we need to do something about Social Security. Social Security is not a state issue, that's a federal issue. So that's not something that would be appropriate to be in our public policy priorities. And then the next item is the differences between the roles of their public policy staff versus our public policy committee. So the role of the staff at the national level is to carry out the directives of the CEO and the board through their advocacy efforts. And those include things like determining which bills will be supported or opposed. Some of you may not know this, but at the federal level, at the national level, we have what's called a lobby corps, and this is comprised of all volunteers, and they will, under Megan's direction, they will go to Congress and advocate on behalf of the legislation that we want to support or reject or oppose. So Megan's duty is to direct the lobby corps, and then she and her staff also engage in direct lobbying. They do not have a paid advocate as we do. They do all of that work themselves. That may entail making visits to legislators, to a congressman, making phone calls, writing letters. Megan also determines which bills will be subject to the 2-minute activist and then sends out alerts. And these are generally in keeping with those 3 main policy directives that come from the board of directors. That's generally what you're going to get 2-minute activist alerts on. She works with coalition partners. This is gaining, I don't want to say popularity, but we're seeing this happening more and more on the national level because her staff keeps getting cut back. And she's been given a new job, she being Megan. She's also in charge of not just public policy, but also membership, basically member advocacy. So it's bizarre and it's way too much for her. So she's working a lot more with coalition partners. And the idea is that there are other groups out there who are working on very specific things that we care about, but they're not a major priority of ours. And so she will work with them and allow them to do the majority of the work on those issues she lets them write the letters, and then she might just sign on to a letter. For instance, that's one example of how we work with coalition partners. And then she oversees the public policy committee. And this is basically what we do. We meet every month. We are primarily an advisory committee. Honestly, we don't do a lot of work, nothing near what the work that is done by this committee at the state level. But we do meet, we do confer with her. We keep ourselves abreast of what's going on at the national level, and vice versa. We bring to her what's going on at the grassroots level. So we serve to help her stay up on what's happening at the state level and what members care about. We work on developing webinars. We usually try to do 2 or 3 webinars each year. We help her develop branch resources. And then we look to see if there's any special projects that we want to work on, what's hot, for instance. So I did a webinar last year on the school board project because that was a really hot item, book censorship and so forth. So that would be an example of a special project that we might want to get involved in. And then, as I said, we keep her apprised of grassroots issues. Compared to that, the role of this committee is we are the ones who develop all of the project ideas, and we implement those ideas with the board approval. The chairs select and oversee the work of our paid advocate. One of our committee's primary tasks is to keep our board and members updated on public policy issues and to solicit participation as needed. So these are the wonderful public policy newsletter that our great co-chairs put out each month, and then to oversee the updating of the public policy priorities. So that's kind of a rundown of everything that I see where the roles of the two public policy entities compare and sometimes overlap, but yeah, so I'm open to any questions, and if I answered, Jenny, if I answered your questions, or if you want to address that again, or any questions that anybody has, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, I just want to say one other thing I forgot is that because Megan is so busy, I know a lot of you can get frustrated. I've had comments from members who say, you know, I had something I wanted to talk to National about, and I sent an email to Megan and she never got back to me. And it is frustrating. And I can tell you pretty much most of the time she will not get back to you. She doesn't have the time, but you have the benefit of having me on that committee. So if you have issues that you would like to be taken to a national, by all means, contact me at any time. I'm more than happy to bring those to her attention. She will respond to me because I'm a committee member. Also, there are issues that I can take to the committee when we meet once a month. I will tell you this, a lot of your ideas you will never see gain any traction because of what I have just explained. Most of what she does comes from her board and her CEO, not so much from membership. So, okay. Anything else? Any questions?
I just have like a general question, not particularly on public policy, but it's just a matter of getting responses from National when you try to call the AAUW Connect, or if you do have a number. I tried to call with reference to the 5-star program, left a message for, and I'm Tremaine, I guess it is,
Yeah.
Never heard back from him. You know, I did get a nice note from Diane Owens, who heads that committee, I guess, and, you know, for everybody who got some stars or something, but I did have questions about that. And on the criteria for getting those stars, does the National Public Policy Committee develop the requirements, or who does that?
We did. It's a great question. That was one of the things that we did work on early in this year, and we made a decision to change them because we recognized that, when I say we, Megan actually brought it to our attention. She was very frustrated because she said it seemed like most of the branches that applied for 5-star, the main one that they were lacking in was public policy. And so our committee agreed to take a look at those, and we made a decision that they were more stringent than necessary, and that there were, for instance, one of the requirements was that you must have a public policy chair. And most of our I won't say most, but in most states, I will tell you, in most states, their branches don't have public policy chairs. A lot of our branches don't have public policy chairs, so we dropped that. And then another one that we made a change on was any lobbying efforts like Lobby Day, that will now count for
Yeah.
having meetings with your Congress people or your legislators. So yeah, we make changes to those. So if you, that's an example of if there's anything else that you want to see change, let me know, and we'll talk.
Does the Public Policy Committee make the adjudication on the 5-star, whether a branch qualifies, or who does
No.
that?
No, Tremaine does that.
He makes the determination on all the categories.
He makes that decision on all the categories based on the input that the committees
Okay.
provided to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sina?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, Kathy, but when we saw the issues of 2025, the Republican program, if you will, and its impact on public education, I realized that we're not, you don't do anything until there's actual implementation. But let's just take something such as the Department of Education going out the door, okay? If that happens, then I don't notice that, because they're focusing more on universities or colleges. I'm concerned about also who was the, suggested department chair of, of the Department of Education. But there's many other issues where public schools are going to be impacted, and nationwide. In other words, not just our California concerns, which we handle, or, we are looking at, but the issue of nationwide issues dealing with, let's say, a K through 12 or K through 14 system. And it looks like National has decided not to focus so much on that, but more on, post K through 12, colleges, universities.
Right. Their primary focus is going to be on secondary education. And what that means is that those will be the bills that any legislation that comes out of Congress, or any proposed legislation specifically affecting secondary education. That's the main thing that Megan will focus on. That's where she will put the primary focus of her energy. But that doesn't mean that she will ignore any other aspects of education. For instance, if there's a move, and there already is, there's a bill that's already been introduced. If when there's a recognizable move to eliminate the Department of Education, well, that's going to affect secondary education as well. So she's not going to only say, well, we only care about how it affects secondary education. Of course, they're going to fight that, because it affects what their primary policy is, but they're not going to ignore the aspects that aren't in there. The other part of that is Title IX affects not just secondary education. It also affects kids and girls at the K through 12 level. So she's going to be working on Title IX issues. She won't ignore Title IX issues that affect K through 12, but that won't be her primary focus. Okay, does that help a little bit? And the other thing is, this is a perfect example. Sina brought to my attention that she was really upset about the prospect of Linda McMahon being nominated, being confirmed as Education Secretary. And so she says National needs to do something about this. So I took that to Megan and expressed our very strong concerns. It turned out that in that conversation, she says, yes, we're all concerned. We've already been discussing that. We're hoping to release a statement soon. And in fact, that is going to happen. And so, I can't say it happened because of mine and Sina's concern, but it is a good instance of how they really do listen to us. It's just a matter of having the right mechanism for getting their ear. So,
Okay.
yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, this is a great discussion. Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing this wonderful information. I just have a quick question on something I noticed. I've attended the annual Commission on the Status of Women meeting in New York City with the UN a few times, and I know AAUW has a presence there, and they often hold meetings for the attendees. I was curious, I can't remember, is that national? Do you happen to know, or are those branches that organize those meetings?
No, it's national. Gloria,
Okay.
Gloria Blackwell, our CEO, is in fact a permanent
Mm,
He's a
designated.
permanent representative and has
Representative.
special consultation status to the
oh,
Economic and
right.
Social Council. And tune in on Sunday if you're interested, because Gloria is going to talk about that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jenny's very involved at the UN level as well. So
Yeah.
she's your
Wonderful.
best point person for that information. But yeah, we have a permanent presence there.
Oh, well, that's great. I'd love
Yeah.
to learn more about the work involved and maybe see eventually if there's anything I can do to help. But that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and just that meeting on Sunday, Ginny has invited all of us to attend that, and Gloria Blackwell is going to be the featured speaker. And the Zoom information is on the front page of the last public policy news from January, so everybody can find that, and please tune in.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Great. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. That was really so useful and helpful. So really appreciate you going through that for us.
Good.
All right. So now that we feel very inspired about what we can do at the state level and how we can translate some of what we want to national, let's talk about our next kind of big thing for the spring, and that is setting our legislative agenda. So in addition, so we have the January 30th deadline for reviewing the PPPs. Amy and I talked about what the deadline should be. We were trying to not double up for you on work because we'll start having bills that come to us. And so they're being introduced now. There are some from the special session. And so the process now is that we work with our legislative advocate, KVO, and Amy and I work together to think about the bills that we want to start evaluating for this legislative cycle. The bills that are chosen for evaluation are all in line with our PPPs. We try to keep in mind bills and how they meet the kind of directives of each pillar so that we don't have too many that hang on one pillar or another, if at all possible. But you'll start getting emails from us as soon as we start getting them in. We hope we can get them in sooner rather than later to give you a few bills to evaluate. Each of you will be asked to evaluate 3 or 4 bills. And we talked about this when we met in August, but just as a refresher, what will happen is we'll contact you with a bill or a few bills. We'll ask you to read the bill text and then do a little bit of kind of background. So do a Google search, right? We'll have links for you there. You can see where the bill is in its process. You can see what is being written about the bill. And reach out to the author's office, the legislative office, for a fact sheet, for additional information, to ask questions. Support and opposition you can often get from the fact sheet, or you can get from doing a search, right? And seeing who is opposing and who is supporting the bill. So we have templates for you. The bill eval template. So you should, as you're going through the process, you should be with the goal of filling this template out for the bill. This is the basic information about the bill number, author, date introduced, status. As you start going through the bill, if you have any trouble with this, then you can send us an email. But on the kind of websites that we'll link you to with your, when we send you the bill, we'll send you to the legislative sites that have this information right at the top with the bill text. So it's just filling in the grid. What does the bill do? Why is it needed? What does it do and why is it needed? Now, if you are like, oh my goodness, I don't read right, bills every day, and it will all be written in legal language. Don't worry. That's why you also reach out to the legislative office, because there you have fact sheet and you can ask questions. But this is kind of the first pass. Pro and con arguments, that often comes both from the fact sheet and from the additional research that you do on the bill. Group supporting and opposing, again, often on the fact sheet and with the additional research that you do, articles and findings. Relation to AAUW public policy program. This is basically, how does this align with our PPPs? And you'll already be well versed on the PPPs because you will have just finished, right, doing your own kind of comments on our next PPP update. But how does this bill in particular relate to, right, our PPPs? And then your recommended action: should we support it, oppose it, watch it, or drop it? Watch means, well, I'm not sure about this bill, and so maybe we need to see how it develops because the bill will change throughout the process. Support is strong, right? Strongly feel we should support or oppose, and right. Drop, this will come a little bit later, but this is, right, if you, right, maybe don't oppose the bill, but think that we have something else of higher priority, you might suggest that we drop the bill, is one instance where you might choose that. Name and date. So just a quick, right, introduction to the bill evaluation, and that is linked here. And if all of that was like, oh my goodness, don't worry, we have a sample for you. So you can see how, right, it's written out. Basic provisions, oh my goodness, one line, right? You might need 3. You don't need to write a novel. So you don't have to worry about writing too long. Pro, con, support, oppose, relationship, right? 2 to 3 sentences, and then support. Okay. So is there anything that you want to add, Amy, about the process?
No, I think you've got it, Missy.
Nancy Major, you have a question?
Yeah, on the pros and cons, it looked like from the sample that you showed that did not include our personal pros and cons, but just whose pros and cons are there? Are they?
This comes out of the research that you do, right? And often this will either be in the fact sheet or in additional writing about this. Now, we also try to give people bills that are kind of in their areas of expertise, something that is, right, useful. This one was assigned to me and was the Transgender Youth Privacy Act. And so part of my pro argument comes from the research that I know also. But had I not already been well versed in that kind of research area, I would have, right, probably done a little bit more kind of reading about the pros and cons of making these kinds of changes legislatively. Does that answer your question, Nancy? Who is next? Does that answer your question, Nancy?
Well, I just was wondering, for example, in that particular instance, the con said NA, and you know, of course, there is a con to every. I don't see where NA could come in any instance to any of the bills. There must be a con.
I think it's in relation to AAUW California public policy priorities.
Well,
like, could nobody think of a con?
Right. And this is, right.
Oh, so it's not my personal research that has come up with cons to the bill.
Keep in mind that you're also looking at it in relation to our public policy program and thinking about pro and con arguments. And so our public policy program would already reject all of the arguments that would say that transgender youth don't exist, right? That, you know what I mean? Like that that is, right, simply a medical diagnosis that is problematic, right? Our public policy priorities that support gender equity would probably already reject like a con
Oh.
argument of that nature. And so it's not applicable here because it would already be kind of problematic in terms of our public policy priorities. That's how I would think about the pro and con arguments, especially for things like trans rights.
Okay, that's what Susan said. So, okay, great. Thank you.
Joy?
Yes, I'd like to go over again where, once we do the evaluations, what's the process is to drop these in the right folder in the work area?
I will try to pull that up quickly, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I do that because you don't need to see my whole desktop. But I can drop that at least in the chat. And so we'll have a kind of that folder system is set up based on the bill number, based on whether or not it is an assembly bill. I mean, it's a Senate bill, right? So there will be SB or AB in the designation. So the whole folder is set up as SB and then the numbers, right? And AB and then the numbers. And so you look at the bill designation and then you drop your completed evaluation in that folder. And when I will try to find that while we're talking.
So each bill will have its own folder?
So each set of bills, say AB 0 through 250, and say we give you AB 106, right, to evaluate, then you would drop it in the folder that's AB between 0 and 250.
Missy, I got it here. I can share it.
Thank you. You are faster than me.
No worries. Okay, so and we'll set up this is from 2024, but we will set up a folder like this again for 2025. So at the top level under completed evaluations, we have Senate and Assembly. Now, if you pop open these folders under Senate, we're going to have these numbers. So depending on the bill number, you'll just put it into the folder that bill number belongs in. Joy, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then, so this might sound really elementary, but the process is on the blank form that you'll send us a copy, we make a copy of that and then fill it out, and then that's what we drop into the folder?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Dina?
Yes, a couple of things. All right, we're going to look at 30 bills, let's say, and we're spreading it out among the group. Is when you select it, are there bills? We're obviously supporting certain bills, but are there bills that are in that mix that are definitely we want to fight against? Is that part of the process of selection, so that we're not only going with the ones we're supporting, but there's some that are outrageously against our public policies?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think that in my experience, it's only been bills that we want to advocate for. Kathy, can you help with that question? Because that's a great question.
Yeah, no, we definitely include, if there are any in the original batch that comes down from KVO to the co-chairs. She makes the initial decision as to what she's going to put in that batch, and if she spots any that she thinks are really adverse to our priorities and our policies, she will include those. We've had I can only think of 2 sessions where we've had a bill that we have voted to oppose, but we did have those. So it's not very often, but if it touches on our policies and priorities, good or bad, it should be in that mix.
Okay, and the follow-up is, let's say the bill looks good, and then they attached all sorts of amendments that are making it really not what we want. And we've already said we're supporting it. We analyze the original bill, we put in information. Is there a follow-up then we get where we say, no, this bill now is not acceptable?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the important things that KVO does is she will track that bill as it goes through changes and amendments. And if a bill is amended to where it's materially changed from what we originally agreed to support, we can drop our support.
Okay.
Yeah.
On bills that are really objectionable, would those be candidates for our action alert system now? If we see something that comes down the road or KVH does, I mean, have we done that in the past where we say this is so bad, you gotta, let's send it out and have people comment on it?
I don't know that we've done it in the past. I bet Kathy would know, but I know that, again, because we're operating at the state level, I don't know how far it would get at in California, but I'll talk a little bit more about what we might do with our interns because we're planning on expanding our action alerts at the state level a little bit more by using our interns to do a little bit more of that labor. But Kathy, do you have anything, I don't know, historically on that one?
Well, we didn't have our great team of tech gurus in the past, so no, we didn't even have an action alert system to send anything like that out on. So, that's something I think we'd have to look at is how we may want to oppose something because it makes us a little bit nervous, or we might want to oppose something because this is really dangerous. So we'd want to make that kind of distinction, I would think, before we decide how much energy we're going to put into rousing the troops on it. I had originally raised my hand though because I wanted to comment on the question about potential amendments. It might be worth mentioning that another instance that we get is especially very early in the legislative process, we get what's called spot bills. And that means a legislator has an idea for something, but they haven't really had time to put it together and put it into a form where it can be published for consideration. And so if that spot bill, again, touches on one of our priorities, we might want to put that in our mix, knowing that it's going to change. We might want to start off not even knowing what form it's going to take, or what exactly the language is going to be. But because it's an item of interest, that would be an instance where that would be something we'd put on our watch, because we want to make space for it in our legislative agenda. But as it then develops, it may turn out that it's not what we really were hoping for, what we want to support. So it would eventually be dropped, but it would start off as a watch. And so we have that mechanism for watching those bills that we anticipate we might get amendments on.
And thanks, Kathy. And that is also if you get a bill and it's like the bill text is like a paragraph or 2 lines, first of all, you thank us for giving you a spot bill because it doesn't require you to read a very long bill. And then you might need to do a little bit more legwork though with the legislative office to see what you can find out about the bill and about how it might develop, so that we have an idea as to whether or not we want to put it on our watch list too, because that will, potentially take time and effort and labor from KVO, and where she might be concentrating on other things. So thank you, Kathy. Any other questions? And thank you. I had to run away. My office is not set up because I was traveling and I was like, oh, it's all going to shut off. So let me reshare my screen then. Okay, so I asked you to mark your calendars for the due date for PPPs. What is the due date for PPPs? Pop quiz.
January 30th.
Ding, 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 ding. Perfect. Okay. So another mark your calendar is March 15th and 16th. So we will be doing a full committee meeting for the Ledge agenda on March 15th and 16th to talk about all the bill evaluations and actually select the bills, and then prioritize them. So we'll pick about 30, and then we'll prioritize them into A, B, and C level priority. Don't worry, we have Amy and I always have a spreadsheet for that. So we'll have a mechanism in place for you to kind of think about ranking as we're going. And for discussion last year, we had a clock timer that made everybody nervous. No, I think it worked. So when you present, and we'll give you all this information, we give you a limited time to present, which is also why it's good in your evals to kind of keep it short as you can. I know some bills are complicated, right? But we spend 2 days working through all of the evaluations to limit then, right, to that kind of 30 bill agenda. So that's upcoming. March 15th and 16th, mark your calendars. We need you virtually on those 2 days. Any questions?
When do you want the evals in by?
That we're not sure yet because we need to find out exactly when the bulk are going to come. We want to try to give you as much time as possible. But Amy, do you have a hard before the meeting kind of date in your mind right now?
Probably the week before, I think. But we'll get back to you and give you a more exact date. The thing is that, even though they continue to release their new bills anytime from December up until February 21st, the majority of them are going to come out right around February 21st. So it becomes a hockey puck type of situation.
Yeah, but we just need to figure out
Hockey stick.
yeah, in my own workflow, just trying to figure out how to give you all as much time and still get them in so that Amy and I have time to talk about them. But yes, we'll get back to you on that. Good question.
Just a note, in the past, we've always had them in the Wednesday before, so that gave everybody 2 days, because everybody needs to review what everybody else has submitted before the meeting, so you come into the meeting kind of already familiar with the bills, and that gave everybody 2 days on Thursday and Friday before the meeting on Saturday. So might want to think about that as a guideline.
Yes,
Will our PPP recommendations for the 25-27 be available before the March 15th to 16th, right?
Yes, what goes to the board is going to the board by the meeting on the 12th. So yes.
Okay.
But they won't be voted on by the whole organization yet. So I mean, so they won't pick up until July 1st. So we can use the older, right, the 23 to 25 or PPPs to set this agenda because they won't be voted on before we have to set it, if that makes sense.
That's a great point, Missy.
All right. Lobby days, over to you, Amy.
Yep. So lobby days this year are going to be held on April 8th and 9th. And we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We're going to emphasize in-person meetings, really encourage people to come to the Capitol if they can. And those in-person meetings are going to take place on April 8th. And people that come to the Capitol, we're going to work to arrange for you to be able to participate in around 3 meetings so that you feel like you're making good use of your time while you're out there. For those who cannot travel to the Capitol, we're going to have Zoom meetings on April 9th. And Rhonda wrote a great article about lobby days that has a lot more detail about it. So please read that article if you haven't yet. It's linked here. And oh, thanks. Yeah, and there's a lot of great information in here about how it all is going to work. There is now a registration form that is going to be sent out to all members tomorrow. But it's here, so you get it early. Please go in there and register. And we're going to have a mandatory training webinar on the evening of March 31st to go through how the logistics of how it all works, as well as importantly, the 3 bills that we're going to be advocating and bill talking points. So to register for that webinar, there's a link that's attached here. So there's 2 things that you need to do. Complete the Lobby Day registration form and the webinar registration form. In the training, you're going to be receiving all of the bill talking points. And Missy, if you could pop open this last year's materials, we're going to set it up very similarly this year. If you scroll down, on the website, we will post all the important material that everybody needs to have for participating in Lobby Days. And this includes all the logistical stuff as well as the bill packages down below, which includes the bill talking points, the fact sheet, and the bill text. So this equips everybody who's going to be participating in Lobby Days with everything that they need to know in order to effectively speak about the bills. And the important thing that I want to point out is, you all are going to be asked to be team leaders of a Lobby Days team. And you will probably have some people on your team that say that they want to, they've written a great script to talk about their bill, and we would really discourage people from doing that. We write these bill talking points in conjunction with KVO because she has helped us to craft the message the way it's going to be most effective in gaining the support of the legislative offices. So we don't want people to go too far off script. We want them to be in line with what we are trying to represent as AAUW California. So that's something important for you all to know as team leaders.
Amy?
And yes, Susan.
In the past, we told people that they could give a couple of sentences if they wanted about how it was personal for them.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's
And
great.
maybe you don't want that. Maybe, say the bill's about rape survivors. They may say, as the mother of a rape survivor or as a rape survivor, they may say something personal before moving into all the facts and so on. Is that discouraged?
No. We don't discourage that at all. That's wonderful. I think storytelling is really effective. So we don't want to put a stop to that. We just want to make sure that when they talk about the actual bill, that they, stay close to what we have provided.
Like framing the problem and framing the solution, like that kind of framing is, I think, what we're really focused on. But I just want to reiterate, no, please make it personal, like if comfortable, because that's so impactful.
Right. Thanks.
And we are asking all of you to be team leaders. So Missy, if you could pop open this team leader responsibility. As team leader, you are the point of contact for those 3 or 4 people who are on your team. Please just make sure that you contact them and confirm that they are all set. They're going to be available. They know when the meeting is scheduled for, the date and the time. If it's going to be by Zoom, make sure that they have the Zoom link. Or if it's going to be in person, make sure that they know where you all are meeting and where they're supposed to be. And assign everybody with the bill and what part of the talking points that they're going to be doing, because somebody will be doing the introduction and then different people will be talking about the 3 bills. So just make sure that everybody knows what their roles are. It's not required, but I would strongly encourage you to do a pre-meeting with your team and just go through how you're going to be talking when you meet with the legislative office. That just helps the flow and helps everybody to really understand like where they come in and what their role is going to be in the meeting.
Amy, as we did last year, we're sending out to all of the team members the team leader information, right? And the other team members that were with them, just to
Mhm.
make sure that they finally get it before the day of the event?
Yes, yeah, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, in past years, we made the mistake of relying on the person that we thought was the team leader to communicate with everybody else. And it turned out some team leaders were not, they didn't have their act together. So Ginny and I realized that last year that it's much better for us to communicate with everybody on the team, but tell them who the team leader is, and you all need to be talking to each other. And that way, if people have not heard from their team leader, they know to raise their hand and say, I think we have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy. Nancy, you're on mute.
This sheet, team leader responsibilities, and the previous couple of sheets, are you going to provide them to us so we can copy them and use the links?
Oh, yeah. You mean what's on here?
This and the previous two pages that you've had up on the screen.
Yes, they're all linked on the, they're right here. So team leader responsibilities right here.
That doesn't
All-
help me. Mm-mm.
They're linked on the slide, and this is a link.
Yeah, but
So
where is the slide and how do I get to it?
we're sending you the slides
Okay,
after the meeting.
okay.
So everything that we've used today, we
Okay.
will send you these slides, and then all the links are internal.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Kathy?
I like the change that you made in having one day for in-person and one day for virtual. I think that's going to cut down on a lot of confusion. My question is, as team leaders, will we be expected to lead, if we go in person, will we be expected to lead a team in Sacramento and the next day lead a team virtually, or will those be split up?
I think we'll split those up. So if you're going to be in Sacramento, it will have other people lead the meetings that are going to be happening virtually the following day.
Thanks.
Okay, and then finally, we ask that you send a thank you note to the people that you met with, and then complete a visit evaluation form. So it's pretty straightforward, and it's great to have this committee who, you guys are the people who are closest to the action and what we're trying to achieve here. So we thank you all for being team leaders in this important event.
Missy,
Finally,
did we get any college folks to join us this year? Or are we getting?
Ginny, that's still in process. We
Oh,
have.
okay.
Yeah, we have publicized it to some college campuses. Missy and I held one info session in November, and we had a few students join that. We're holding another one this month and another one next month. So we are hoping that we're going to have some college students sign on.
Yeah, I sent it to our local university, and I did get a call back and it had some questions asked, but I don't know if anything resulted from that. So, yeah.
Nobody has registered yet, but maybe they will be coming to our next
Yeah,
info session.
okay.
But we have a registration link, and I mean, the community colleges in LA and the CSUs all start in 2 weeks. And so because you all are amazing and have a lot of this stuff together already, we can, make sure that we send that out to departments and make sure that it gets into potentially some syllabi for extra credit. So go ahead.
Oh, Amy, I wanted to know, how do you know what do we have a preference if we want to be in person or lobby or virtual? Like, how do we let you know that? Like, I would like to do an in person to lead a group. How do I let you know that, or how will you know that?
Yes, that's part of this registration form.
Okay,
So on there, you'll get to, choose your preference.
Got it. I'll do that. All right. Perfect.
Okay, and then finally, I wanted to mention that Missy and I tried to get funds to cover travel for this entire committee to come to the Capitol and lobby in person. Unfortunately, AAUW California doesn't have a lot of funds right now, and we were not successful in getting the full budget that we asked for approved. So we have some money, but not enough to send everybody to the Capitol. we really encourage those of you who live close enough within driving distance to go. Like I'm an hour and a half away, so I plan to go in person. But if you are interested in coming to the Capitol, please let us know, and I will look at our funds and try to figure it out, because we really would like to have as many of you come to the Capitol as possible.
Yeah, Amy, I have a question on that because I'm probably the furthest. And so obviously there would have to be an overnight stay the night before,
Right.
you
Mhm.
know, and
Yeah.
I'm hearing that probably that won't be covered either.
And Sina, if you would like to come, let me know, and we'll see how much money there is, how many people have an interest in traveling, and whether they are people that are going to have to do the overnight stay, whether they're people that are going to have to fly. And then we'll have to take a look at the whole thing and see how many we can afford to send
Okay.
and go from there. But if you have an interest, let me know.
Okay.
Yes, please don't automatically sign up for the online if you have an interest in going. Let us know that you have an interest in going, because we have been, like, Amy is nice. We've been working it hard to try to get money for us to all go. So, I think the more of you that email us to tell us you are interested just gives us more fodder for saying, look how many of our committee members are interested in this. You sure you can't find some money anywhere? So
I'm really interested in going. I mean, I've done a lot of this. I was head of the San Diego County School Boards Association, and I was every year I go up and, lobby. And so I've done a lot of that, and I really would like to go. It's just that it would be airfare, and I'd share a room with somebody if there's a place that we use, that kind of thing. But and not the full amount. I mean, even if it's just partial.
yep. And I think it would be great if in the request to us, you put some of those things in writing, because I would love to have a nice little list of testimonials to take with me. So
Okay.
feel free when you request to,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
completely confused, because you're saying on the one hand that you want us to be the leaders
hmm
of the teams on lobby day, but then you're talking about some people coming and some people not coming. So how can we be the leader of the team if we're not coming?
because you can be a team leader online.
Well, I thought you said you wanted everybody to come to Sacramento.
Well, we would like you to come to Sacramento, but we don't necessarily, we've tried to get the funding for our whole committee to go, but we don't have it. So if you can go, you'd be a team leader in person, and if you can't, you'll be a team leader online.
Okay, I'm still confused. So for those of us who go to Sacramento, how will it be determined what, if any, funds can be assigned to each of us to pay for various costs?
We just need to know how. I'm encouraging you all to tell me if you want to come, and then Amy and I will look at the budget we have and see what we can do. I will give up my spot so that you can go, right? Like, what money do we have that we can then like reappropriate, and how many people can we afford to send, or what amount of money can we give you if you're interested? And then you can make a decision if that's an amount of money that can work for you to make the trip. That's what we mean by, if you want to go, we need to know that so we can try to figure out how we can like wiggle around the amount of money that we've actually been given to get as many people there as possible.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Last year, Miley and I stayed at the hostel in Sacramento. It's not posh, but it is interesting. It's in a really old Victorian building, so. And a lot of lobbyists stay in there, I found out.
Oh,
So
I'll have to get the details from you, Donna. That sounds like a good option.
it was a good option, and we enjoyed it, and it's within walking distance, and they have parking. So yeah.
Great.
So when you say hostel, what does that mean? Does that mean everybody sleeps in the same room?
Miley and I had a room where there were 2 beds and both of us slept in it. They do have bunk beds and then they do have some single rooms. But and then they have a huge kitchen and they have, so you can store stuff in the fridge and then, you know, they have like coffee and tea available. I wasn't sad that we stayed there, especially when I could walk to the Capitol from there.
Yeah, that was a key for me too last year. Having to drive from the hotel or motel or whatever it was that they picked, especially at night, wasn't something that I felt safe doing. So
Yeah, it sounds like Donna has a good option, so we'll definitely get info on that from Donna and share it with all of you.
I want to pause and just say, I know we're 5 minutes over time, and so Amy and I are going to try to motor through to update you on the last 3 items. And if you have to go, please go, and we respect your time. So I apologize.
Yeah, and we are actually 35 minutes over time, so thank you all for hanging in here, but we'll try to power through the rest of this. Quick update on the school board project. The school board project is now entering a new phase. The first phase encouraged members to attend school board meetings and report back what's happening in their districts. The second phase encouraged members to engage in their local district races. And the new phase 3 is now going to involve monitoring school boards for compliance to California laws. So there's a survey that's going to be sent out to all members on February 3rd to learn about where things sit in their districts following the recent elections. So look for that to come into your inbox in early February. And Kathy, is there anything that I missed saying about this one?
No, I think that covers everything I would want to say about it. Just that we're looking at partnering with a new organization called Public School Defenders Hub. They're a resource agency and they provide a training on how to do the monitoring. And we're in the process of determining whether or not we want to suggest to our members to attend that training or not. So you may be hearing about that as well.
Thanks, Kathy. Yes, Rhiannon?
You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I have myself on mute. I had attended a meeting on 10/15, and I did a presentation at our local board, San Ramon Valley Unified School District, and I think I sent over the speech to you, the
did.
video.
Yeah.
And it was, and I'm not sure if other members want to take a look at that because I was really coming from, as you're saying, law. What is the Constitution? How does it look at censorship? Blah blah blah. It was. I thought it was a pretty powerful presentation, and I know the other members that attended really liked it and wanted to almost use it as a blueprint, that other people could take information from it and maybe use it if they wanted. So again, I know in our school district, we're still dealing with this.
Rhiannon, I
And
just want
Rhiannon did. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I just want to let you know that we agreed that was a really good script and we've already posted it on the website.
Wonderful.
As an alternate script for our members to take a look at.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Yeah, it is a great speech.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And there is just one small thing that I added to the slides, which isn't on Missy's version because I just added it, but there was some suggestion from the team about coming out and making a statement about Linda McMahon opposing her nomination for Secretary of Education. And as Kathy mentioned, National is now going to be coming out in opposition to her. So previously, Missy and I were planning to do a California Action Alert in opposition to her nomination. And instead, now National is going to be coming out with a 2-minute activist, which is going to be sent out next week. So I've got the link to 2-minute activist in the latest version of the slide deck, which you all are going to be receiving. If you're not signed up for 2-minute activist, please sign up for that and look for that action alert to come out next week about McMahon.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And thank you for that. We'll use that at our meeting next week. Thank you, Kathy, for approving my updated presentation to local school district. I have a question about it. Would it be okay to ask you, Kathy, and any other leadership, Missy or Amy or anyone else who's interested, my question at the end, or could I ask it now? I know we've already gone over, so I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
In case there are people that need to drop, Susan, because we're so far
Yeah.
over time, did you want us
Yes.
to hold it till the end? If
I
you don't
will.
mind? Okay,
No, sure.
thanks.
So I'll be really brief with the last 2 points, and that is that because we've had a lot of requests post-election to kind of take action to fight back against Project 2025 and a lot of different kinds of actions that are completely inverse or opposed to our public policy priorities. We're starting to develop a running list of materials and resources for taking action. So we set it up as a spreadsheet. And when I say we, I mean Amy did a great job setting it up as a spreadsheet. And we are fleshing it out. What we're doing next is asking you to take a look and review the spreadsheet that's linked here, because we set it up as a quick look into subcategories across the top, the issues across the top, and then resources that are coming down across here. So we've set up, right, if this is a topic area that you're interested in that align with our public policy priorities, right, then we're going to just start populating it with resources down in the columns. So take a look, review, email us with your input for additional areas, or if you have action items. And I just ask to put this, in the subject line of your email so that we get it in a timely fashion and that we can put it in. And we are, this is something that we are going to ask our, one of our interns to continue to build out and maintain as an online resource. And this is, it's another kind of big project area. So we have the infrastructure set up, and now the next step is to start populating it with things as they pop up, and then have a point person who can actually monitor it and start removing things if they're outdated or put in new things. So that is going to be an intern project. Any initial questions about this? All right, and the last one is just our intern update. So it looks like we're going to have more than one intern. It looks like we are going to have up to 3. We are in the process of interviewing finalists. They'll be interviewed next week. And by the end of January, it's likely we'll have 3 interns, not just 1. So we're going to have a lot of support. Interns are going to take on projects. So right now, these are some proposed intern projects. We're doing it, we'll pick the project areas depending on their strengths and their background. We initially had one with just political science, but I had so many people interested across the university that we ended up having applicants from like marine biology and statistics and math. And so we'll see what their strengths are and their subject areas, but some of the projects, so Kathy mentioned the training, right? So we propose potentially having them work as the school board project monitors training support. The action resources spreadsheet, continuing to work on kind of public education, resource development. We've had a Q&A on trans rights and trans misogyny that has been kind of sitting right back here as a project we need to develop, but we have so many things going on. Partnership meetings, actually going and attending and reporting back, and then support areas working with us on PP News and lobby days. So more to come on that front, but that is where we are at, and we have finally come to the end.
I just want to say a quick plug for my presentation at 3 o'clock on Title IX before everybody pops off, just to remind you.
Absolutely.
Susan, I know you had a question about the school board project.
Yes. Thank you for, okay. Instead of talking about Title IX now, to the script that you originally wrote, and I changed to make it a little more positive because there's no documented problems in these districts, said AB 1599 prohibits a school district from requiring teachers essentially to out students. But do teachers still have that right if they want to out a student who presents in a different gender than, you know, expected or whatever? I'm just thinking if the school asks, they never ask us any questions. They're usually very grateful for our presence, but they don't ask questions. But in case they asked,
the law does not forbid it, but it forbids districts from requiring it.
Okay, thank you. That's what it looked like. I just was checking. Thank you. Got it.
And Susan, I would say we really liked your script as well. I think I added that to
Oh, thank you very much.
to the website as well.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any
See you
other
at 3
questions?
or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for hanging in there. And I thought we were done at 1:30 because Amy tricked me, and that's what was on my
Oh,
calendar.
that's so funny. He wanted to chat with you personally.
We're grateful for all you guys do. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank
we are
you
grateful
all
for
so
all of
much.
you. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.